All right, well, good evening, everybody. And just like a few people have already commented, I sure hope the Facebook stream works tonight. I don't know why it didn't last week. It was just a momentary glitch, I think, and then cut out for the rest of the night. But I have an exciting concert planned for you. And I thought of this a couple of weeks back, and I had time to work on it this week. Since this is now 2023, tonight's concert is going to be called New Year, New Songs. Of course, by that, I don't mean brand new songs, because I really don't care for much of the modern day music, but new songs to me, that is, songs that I have never performed before. At least many of them will be, not all of them. I'm going to try and stick mostly to material that I don't think I've played in quite some time. So tonight is New Year, New Songs, and what I'm going to start out with are a couple of songs that I've played for years, but I don't remember performing them, at least in a virtual concert, for quite some time. We're going to go down to New Orleans and play the two best remembered songs written by the legendary pianist Tony Jackson, who was supposedly one of Jelly Roll Morton's great inspirations. From 1916, his hit song Pretty Baby, complete with the original verse, which survived in a recording of Glover Compton. And then from the next year, 1917, we'll do a song that he wrote called Some Sweet Day. I've always thought it was real pretty. So here we go with two songs by Tony Jackson. you so much. Two songs by the New Orleans pianist Tony Jackson, and we'll return to New Orleans at the end of the program. I'm planning to do some music by Roll Morton, but I'm going to kind of go all over the place between now and then. I'm going to leave a little bit of the early ragtime like that behind and play a lot of pop songs from the 1920s and 30s. That's the plan, anyway. I learned a lot about the 1920s and 30s music from the late Johnny Maddox, one of my favorite piano players. And what he used to do is he would tell me about all these songs. He rarely ever actually taught me anything on the piano. He just would send me music and say, sight read that one, and sight read this song for me, and so forth. So I learned about a lot of great repertoire. And so I pulled out a few of these songs for you that I haven't played in some time, some new material. And let's do one here. This is one that he taught me about, which dates from 1931. Music by Dan Doherty, words by Jack Yellen and Sid Silvers. Kind of a cute tune called Let's Get Friendly. There's the original music. And I'm going to start with the verse on most of these songs. That way I only have to turn pages one time. I have practiced these. We'll see how it goes. Thank you very much. Let's get friendly. I think Johnny told me there was an old lady in his nursing home that remembered that song from when it came out. That's my memory of that one, talking to him on the phone about it. Well, here's a little bit more familiar song, which I realized I have been playing this a lot at the Diamond Bell in Durango lately, and I don't think I've played it on a virtual concert. So let's try this for you now. From 1924, a big hit of the Roaring Twenties, Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, GA. Let's see if I can remember all the words to it. Let's see. Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Leather is tough, but Hannah's heart is tougher. She's a gal who likes to see men suffer. To tease them and please them, torture and squeeze them is her delight, they say. I saw her at the seashore with a great big pan. There was Hannah pouring water on a drowning man. Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, GA. Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, GA. Thank you very much. Yeah, Bill is quoting the rest of it's, I guess, part of the second chorus. An evening spent with Hannah sitting on your knees is like traveling through Alaska in your BVDs. Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, GA. Well, I'm encouraged. It looks like everything's working tonight. Hopefully Facebook won't cut out after 20 minutes. Let me check YouTube real quick, folks. And I'm going to even check Twitch, too. See if there's anybody watching over there. Yeah, I've got a few. Oh my, I got someone watching in the UK on Twitch. Amazing. Thanks, folks. If you're new to my concerts, I do accept virtual tips. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and I'm happy to take requests as well. The information should be in all the postings. Might be hard to find on Twitch. I haven't yet figured out how to get the tip information to post throughout the concert in the chat. No, I don't know Breeze from Alabama. That's one of the more obscure Joplin pieces. Sorry about that. I'm going to do some fun stuff, though. I hope you like it, folks. Doing a concert like this, all new songs, is more challenging for me. It's kind of exciting for me as an artist, in a way, instead of playing the same songs like Maple Leaf Rag and The Entertainer that I have to play over and over normally. And it seems to be learning new material is what inspires me to practice these days. Learning pieces that I haven't played. Now, granted, a lot of these I have played. Many of them I have not. It's been a couple of years since I played this one. Here's the original copy of it from a picture called Fox Movie Tone Follies of 1929. And this is one of several great songs in the movie. The Big City Blues was one, Breakaway. This one is called Walking with Susie. And of course, I'm sure there were many recordings of this made during the period, but the first one I heard was in a box of old English music hall records that Johnny gave me. The song was sung by G.H. Eliot, one of the great British stars of the period, and it was just a really happy, wonderful record. So here we go with Walking with Susie. Thank you very much. Walking with Susie. Words and music by Con Conrad, Sidney Mitchell, and Archie Gottler. Some of the greatest songwriters of the 1920s. Con Conrad I was the co-writer of Margie, for instance. Let's see. Looks like everything's working. Fingers crossed. I should be quiet about it, then I won't jinx it. A number of the songs I'd like to play for you tonight are more like ballads of the 20s and 30s. So let's do this one next, hiding back here. Johnny made me sight read this one time at his house, and I loved it so much I've never forgotten it. And it will surprise you. It's a song from a W.C. Fields movie called Poppy. Here's the original sheet music. Now the stars on the cover are not W.C. Fields. That's Richard Cromwell and Rochelle Hudson, a 30s actress that I like, who I think is kind of underrated. This was a Paramount movie, so words and music by Leo Robin and Ralph Ranger. Ralph Ranger was one of the greatest talents of the 1930s. He wrote Love in Bloom, for instance. And this song is called A Rendezvous with a Dream. From Poppy, 1936, a W.C. Fields picture. Thank you very much. A Rendezvous with a Dream. As I say at the Diamond Bell, you won't hear that down the street tonight. Singing in the Bathtub. No, don't know that one. Poppy's my dog's name. Oh, how cute. This is Alan Coombs here on YouTube. I saw that you had requested Percy Winrich last week. I haven't learned any of new pieces written by him, and I played them not long ago, so I didn't do it last week. Let me think on that. Maybe I will play you a piece by Winrich. Now, my piano tuner, Chris Drury, is listening tonight. You know, I'm amazed. It still sounds fairly well in tune. But I would like to call you and talk about getting you up here again before too much more time goes by. Maybe we'll get you in the Diamond Bell too. In the meantime, let's do another, this is sort of a ballad, a little bit more up-tempo, from a movie. It's a terrific picture called Murder at the Vanities, a song that I absolutely love. I don't think I've ever performed this before. It's called Cocktails for Two. And the picture, let's see, who all's in it? Jack Oakey, Kitty Carlisle, Victor McLaughlin, Duke Ellington and his orchestra. It's a very interesting movie, and I have all the songs from this movie except for one. It's quite unusual. The movie was made in 1934. There's a song in the movie called Marijuana, spelled M-A-R-A-H-U-A-N-A, Marijuana. And it's a pretty neat song. I would love to find an original copy of the music to that. But for now, the hit of the picture, Paramount movie, words and music by Arthur Johnston and Sam Coswell, Cocktails for Two. Thank you very much. Cocktails for Two. A lot of great jazz artists have done that over the years. Art Tatum recorded it, I think. And just about 2 or 3 days ago, I found a record at the local antique store of Spike Jones. I've never collected many of his albums, and the first song on the album was Cocktails for Two, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. You know, it's just a really gorgeous tune, and they make something pretty ridiculous out of it. Spike Jones and his City Slickers. Okay, well, let's see. What's next on the program? Happy to take requests too. Yeah, oh, Marilyn just mentioned the Spike Jones record. Yep. Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't think I mentioned when I was talking about the tips. Also, please hit the like button on Facebook and YouTube. It helps me out. The social media algorithms are made to work with those. Every bit helps. And also, if you haven't followed me on Twitch, if you have an account, go ahead and subscribe on Twitch, please, because once I get 100 followers, I think I get a little extra tip money from people who follow me if I want to sell emotes and those things. Tell me if that's right. Let's see who I got on Twitch here. A few people. Oh, I love your Simply Delish, but I'm afraid I don't know it by heart. Let me do this song next. Another one that Johnny Maddox taught me. Words and music by Sam Coslow and Tom Satterfield. Sam Coslow was a really wonderful writer. Started out in the early 20s and later wrote for many Paramount movies, just like the last song. Now this is just a pop song, however, and it's called Restless. This has particularly unusual harmonies and a neat melodic line, which is why I love it. That's why Johnny thought I'd like it. It's just really sophisticated and neat and unusual. From 1935, Restless. Restless. Thank you very much. Isn't that a neat tune? I've got a lot of sheet music on the piano tonight. Oh, I see Kelly Kaufman has mentioned this song twice here. Maybe I'll go ahead and play it for you. I'd like to get in a few requests, a few songs that are a little more familiar. This is a neat song that many people assume was written during the early jazz period, but it was really written a number of years later. It was written in 1946 for a movie called New Orleans, which featured jazz musicians like Billie Holiday and Louis Armstrong. Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans? I have played the verse to this, I don't know if I can do it without the sheet music in front of me or not. Let's see. I better not try it. It's not, the verse doesn't fit the chorus very well. There are some songs that are just like that. The verse is too different from the chorus, and so that part of the melody never caught on or what have you. Yeah, let me try this. Let me do this. Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans? Thank you very much. Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans? I just kind of improvised a version of that. I usually play it with Basin Street Blues, too, another great New Orleans tune. Well, I want to do something upbeat here before I put you all to sleep. And this is a popular song which a lot of jazz musicians have recorded as well. But the song was written in 1929, and it was written for a Broadway show. Here's the original sheet music. It was a Broadway show called Oh Please, starring Beatrice Lillie and the great character actor Charlie Winninger. You might know him from a lot of old movies, such as Showboat and what have you. The song was written by Vincent Youmans, I think one of the greatest American songwriters of the so-called American Songbook, which is kind of forgotten. Vincent Youmans wrote Tea for Two and the musical Hit the Deck. I've played the song Hallelujah that he wrote. This one is called I Know That You Know. And a lot of people have recorded this, including James P. Johnson, I think. And it kind of fits the stride piano style fairly well. This is I Know That You Know. thank you very much. I know that you know. Let's see, what else is on my list? Let's do this. Another ballad, if you can stand it. You know, the older I get, the more I really prefer ballads with gorgeous melody and interesting harmony. It's kind of, I don't know, it's more interesting to me than just flashy piano showpieces that are not as melodic. This is called You Started Me Dreaming. Here's the original sheet music. Music by the wonderful J. Fred Coots. And the lyrics by Benny Davis. Well, they're credited equally on words and music. But anyway, if you're not familiar with J. Fred Coots, he's the legendary songwriter who wrote Love Letters in the Sand, You Go to My Head, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And this is a kind of a ballad from 1936. I just think it's gorgeous. There's some recordings of it. If you just search on YouTube and so forth, you can hear it. You started me dreaming. You started me dreaming. Thank you very much. Someone commented to me a number of years ago, they liked it, especially with an unfamiliar song like that, they liked it when I would say the name of the song before I started it, and then when I finished the song as well, so you didn't forget. Now let's see. Yes, J. Fred Coots is related to the drummer Danny Coots. Danny described it as sort of a great uncle. It may be a little more distant than that. Danny never met him, but he told me he got to talk to him on the phone many times. Well, go ahead and send in some requests for me tonight. I need to do some more of that, I'm quite sure. Oh, sure, I can play Old Man River. I can do that. It doesn't really fit in with the theme for tonight's concert too much, just because it's something that I played many, many times. Let's see. Oh, well, Alan, you're asking about Duke Ellington that I played last week. I appreciate that. Um, Louisiana Fairy Tale, I think that's also a J. Fred Coots song. I don't know that by heart. You know what I might do? This is for Alan. I might finally play you a Percy Winrich tune. Let's go back to the early ragtime years, and I'll play you one of his pieces that is not very familiar at all. maybe I'll do more than one of his tunes. But first, an early rag from about 1906, I think, which I love. He wrote called Dixie Blossoms. I like Percy Winrich's rags because the melodies are kind of simple. They just make you tap your feet. That's about all there is to it. He wrote one that was a big hit called Dixie Darlings. This came out a year earlier, I believe. It's called Dixie Blossoms, a rag by Percy Winrich. Let's go ahead and cover that for you now, since I haven't done Winrich yet. And there's Dixie Blossoms. Thank you, folks. Now, let's see. I could play another Percy Winrich rag for you. I like to play these two rags together. I'll go ahead and do it. This was actually one of his more popular rags, but I don't do it too often, and I haven't played it in a while, so I guess it fits in with new songs for tonight. This came out in, maybe Leo here knows, on Facebook, 1908, I believe, The Smiler. Sometimes I dedicate this to my neighbor Linda, because she's always smiling. This is The Smiler Rag by Percy Winrich. Smiler. Thank you very much, folks. A little more authentic ragtime for tonight by Percy Winrich, who's called the Joplin Kid because he was from Joplin, Missouri. It didn't have anything to do with Scott Joplin. And it's 1907, The Smiler. Well, things seem to be working on Facebook tonight, too. So glad. Hooray. I think that was kind of a fluke last week because of the snowstorm. We really did have a lot of snow. Now, let me play this song for you next, which I had kind of planned on ahead of time. This is an Irving Berlin song, lesser known standard of the American Songbook, but of course almost everything Irving Berlin wrote is a standard in a sense. This is Russian Lullaby, and I believe it's from 1927, yeah. And I was inspired to learn this a number of years ago by some recordings of the stride pianist Donald Lambert. This is a waltz, but he took it and played it in really hot, jazzy stride piano. And I don't play it note for note the way that Lambert did it anymore. What I've done is I've gone back to the original and I include the verse now, which he did not play, and kind of came up with my own version, still somewhat inspired by his recording. Frank Banta made a really nice 78 record of this too. So here we go with Russian Lullaby by Irving Berlin. Thank you very much. Russian Lullaby. I played that in the old time piano contest a number of years ago and have not played it too often. ever since. So I thought it was about time to do that again for tonight's concert. New year, new songs. Hope you're all enjoying this. There's definitely some songs I haven't played in a while. Oh, Guy, I'm afraid I'd have to practice the J.C. Johnson songs. Yeah, I don't play them too often. It would fit in tonight, but I just, I would have to practice. Most of these, I've spent the last 3 days going over them for several hours, so don't want to screw up too badly on what otherwise is turning out to be a pretty good concert tonight. If you enjoy this kind of music, let me know. Share the postings on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Go subscribe on Twitch if you're new. I would like to try and get 100 followers over there. I'd appreciate it. And if you're so inclined, I do accept virtual tips for these concerts. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo, and the information is in the chat and the postings on YouTube and Facebook. And I also have a P.O. Box on my website. If you don't trust PayPal, a lot of people would rather send a check, and hey, you know, that's fine with me. Every bit helps my career, small or large, and particularly this time of year. Winter seems to be a slow time of year for musicians. Now, let's see. What am I going to play next? I see the request. I've had one or two requests for Duke Ellington. I think I'm going to save that for another broadcast when I can practice some new stuff. I play Mood Indigo all the time. I'm going to skip that tonight. I'm going to represent a composer tonight that I do not play much of his music. And oddly enough, I think his music is kind of similar to that of Duke Ellington. And they were friends in real life. I'm talking about Willie the Lion Smith. I'm going to do some more stride piano for you. And Willie, I was trying to think today the best way to describe it without being negative. He wasn't quite as clean of a player as James P. Johnson or Fats Waller, but I think he was particularly inventive as a composer. Plus his whole persona, that's part of what made these guys great. They all had their own individual style. Back in the ragtime and early jazz years, that's how they all played. No one sounded alike. And Willie the Lion, supposedly he got his nickname in World War I. And like I said, I think he was quite an inventive composer. So, I've been excited to play both of these for you this week. I've been practicing them for the last few days. And again, this is one that I used in the Old Time Piano Championship. Have not played it since. I don't think I've played either one of these pieces in about 10 or 15 years. And this one, I believe, may have been Willie's very first published composition. I had a hard time finding the sheet music. Butch Thompson sent me a Xerox of this many years ago. Published in 1925 by Clarence Williams, who was so important because he was the businessman who helped so many of the great African-American musicians get their music published. He was also a good pianist and songwriter himself, but that's how Willie got his start, was working at Clarence Williams Music Publishing Company. 1925, Donald Lambert had a hot version of this too, but I'm not going to try and play it the way he did it. This is closer to the original sheet music. It's called Keep Your Temper by Willie the Lion Smith. Something like that. Keep your temper. Thank you very much. If you've never heard much of Willie the Lion, there's a whole documentary about him that was made 15 or 20 years ago. It's quite interesting. Duke Ellington is interviewed. Willie was just such a character. He was a black Jewish guy that smoked a cigar and wore a derby. You know, that was part of the attraction. Play anything in the key of E flat. That's an interesting comment. I think I just did. And now I'm going to do another piece by Willie the Lion from a number of years later, 1934. I haven't played this in about 15 years either, but it came back to me pretty quickly. And Willie's most well-known pieces are probably Echo of Spring and also Fingerbuster. I've never played either of those, but I did play this once years ago. I think it's very neat and interesting. It's funny how music can represent something orally. You can just hear it and somehow know what it's supposed to be. This piece is called Rippling Waters by Willie the Lion Smith. And it's written in, that funny comment, it's written in the key of D major, which very little popular music is. It's fairly challenging. Rippling Waters by Willie the Lion Smith. Thank you very much. Boy, I haven't played that in a long time. This is just a great piece. What else is on my list? Okay. Got a few more that I've planned for the night. Leo says he's funny. Oh yeah, Willie the Lion was pretty funny. Is a bagpipe just a portable organ? Is that something Willie said? Oh, that is funny. Now let's see, I'm trying to check all the websites so I don't leave anybody out, and also get as many requests as I can. I certainly feel a little bit funny about playing Russian lullaby these days. I see a comment about that, but what else would we like to hear, folks? Go ahead and send in requests. I'd like to try and get to a number of them tonight. I've got about 3 more pieces that I definitely want to play for you that I had planned ahead of time, but requests are always good. Maybe something you don't think I've played in a while. That would fit with the theme for tonight's concert. Oh, yeah. This is for Loretta here on YouTube asked me about what'll I do? And I thought, well, that kind of fits. She asked me about that before the concert even started. And I thought, well, I haven't played that in a while, so it kind of fits. And it's just a gorgeous song. You know, they don't have to be complex to be wonderful. It's another Irving Berlin standard. So let's try that. I'll improvise a little arrangement for you. What'll I Do by Irving Berlin. What'll I Do? Thank you, folks. Yeah, it is so pretty. Okay, hopefully that was very quick, and let me know if we're in sync now. Is my mouth doing what my words say? Let me know. Yeah, And also someone corrected me, it was Buddy Ebsen that she danced with, not Bill Robinson in that movie. Yay, that's terrific. Maybe I'm getting better at this. Here's my Shirley Temple medley. much. That's my Shirley Temple medley. I'm glad you thought of that, Leo, and thanks for suggesting it. Hopefully a few more familiar songs for you folks, but ones that I haven't played in a while. Good, looks like all the streams are working. Yep. Well, now I have a couple of tunes I want to finish the concert with tonight. You know, I always announce what I'm going to do ahead of time on Facebook, but for those of you that just listen on YouTube or Twitch, I suppose it's kind of a surprise each time. I posted some scans of some 78 records of the piano pieces that I knew I was going to do, some of these new piano pieces that I haven't played very often. And here's one of them. I learned it about a year ago, maybe a little more. And it's one of those tunes that everyone plays slightly differently. And it was originally written by the great West Coast jazz pianist Joe Sullivan, who wrote Little Rock Getaway. This is one of his early tunes from about the same time, 1934. And it's called the Gin Mill Blues. I just love this. I fell in love with it when I heard it on some recordings of Knocky Parker, who has become one of my favorite pianists. And so I tried to use sheet music and get a little bit of it off of there, and then also throw in some of the Knocky Parker licks. It's just kind of my own amalgamation of this tune, and I hope you like it as much as I do. This is called Gin Mill Blues. Thank you very much. Gin Mill Blues. At least a short version of it. Joe Sullivan was terrific. One of these days I'll have to learn the Little Rock Getaway too. Well, now, as I promised towards the beginning of tonight's program, we're going to go back down to New Orleans. And I have realized over the last year or two just how much I love Jelly Roll Morton. He was definitely the best piano player that ever came out of New Orleans. and didn't play too many of his pieces for a couple of years, but getting back into him lately, and I just love his music. And I don't know, 6 months or a year ago for one of my concerts, I learned a thing that I call it a thing, that he recorded at least maybe 3 times. And once for the Library of Congress, he made this wonderful set of recordings for the Library of Congress where he was interviewed by Alan Lomax. And those recordings have fascinated me for years. And he talks about something that the piano players used to do in New Orleans, which he said was considered high art. He and Tony Jackson would play for these things and make up some music along the way. And it's called the Naked Dance. So let me play that for you next. I still have not played this too many times over the years. It's my own version of it, really by Jelly Roll Morton, the Naked Dance. Much. That's The Naked Dance by Jelly Roll Morton. Again, kind of my own version, which I've just tried to play in the spirit of the way I think that would have worked. Let me know everything's working, folks, because I'm going to play something real good for you. Okay, we're good. I'm going to do Grandpa's Spells by Jelly Roll Morton. I found his original record of this at an antique store in Placerville, California, of all places. That was so unusual, I've never forgotten it. And in the third part of the piece, you have to listen for the spells. That's why it's called Grandpa's Spells. Grandpa Spells. Thank you very much, folks. Well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's concert. And I may go back and edit out the little pauses there on YouTube so that you can watch the whole thing and wait without having to wait. So next week, please join me again for another virtual concert. I have one or two ideas as far as what I might do, and one of them was inspired by another one of the Johnny Maddox records. He did one called Raggin' the Hits, which was mostly pop songs of the 60s. Of course, that was the time that he did that album. I thought, I could probably come up with enough somewhat newer songs. I've had many requests over the years to rag newer songs. I might do some things like, Broadway tunes like Hello Dolly, and I love the music of Kander and Ebb, who wrote Chicago. I might do something like that next week and see if I could fill out a concert with it. Anyway, thanks also for those of you that send in the tips. I am most grateful, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Good night for now.